Hey everyone, welcome back. It seems that the GOP is having a little bit of financial difficulty, especially in certain key battleground states for 2024. The Arizona GOP is down to just 6.4% of the cash reserves it had 4 years ago, a drop from $770,000 to just $50,000. The state of Colorado's GOP is facing eviction for not being able to pay the rent on its offices, and in Minnesota, the GOP only had $54 to their name until they were recently bailed out by Speaker Kevin McCarthy. But they're not the only ones having some financial troubles. Donald Trump's super PAC recently had to recall $60 million as they stated they only had $4 million on hand, and the former president's legal bills are starting to get a little bit expensive. So I started asking myself, who could be behind this lack of funding for the GOP? Let's start off with the donor class, the wealthy individuals and large corporations who simply have the most money to give. But when these groups donate to politicians, parties, or other political organizations, they see it as an investment towards achieving a certain policy goal, whether that might be a tax break that improves a company's profits, or the implementation of a particular culture-related issue that one particular wealthy individual really wants to see implemented, i.e. abortion. But, regardless, they're only going to invest money in a candidate that they think has a chance of winning, because otherwise they're just throwing money away. So, what might be going on with the modern GOP is that it has just become unelectable to some degree. If we look at the last 3 election cycles, the GOP has broadly underperformed, especially in some of these key battleground states. And as more extreme MAGA-affiliated individuals rise to positions of power in these state-level parties, I can see where some of these large donors are saying, yeah, you're not going to win, so I'm going to go spend my money in another state, or on my own political action committee that can more clearly focus on the things I'm trying to achieve, and really overall give me a better return on investment. The same thing is true for former President Trump. Not only has he lost in the past, and have many of his candidates failed in the 2022 midterms, but a lot of the money that's being donated to him is just going to pay for his legal defense. So, if you're one of these wealthy donors that wants to see some sort of policy goal achieved, not only is Trump not likely to get into office to implement whatever it is you want, but quite frankly, most of your money isn't even going to go to the election. It's just going to go to trying to keep Donald Trump out of jail. So, again, bad return on investment, so I can see where a lot of major donors just aren't willing to give him any more money. On the other hand, you have these small dollar donors, who are just your average American voters who might be able to give $5, $10, $20 based on their current financial situation and what they think they can afford to give. And when it comes to this class of donors, quite frankly, I just think that they're out of money to give. There's only so much money to go around, and they are constantly being bombarded by fundraising emails from the local party, state party, national party, their senators, their congressmen, all of the different Republican presidential candidates, including the former President Donald Trump, who launches a new fundraising campaign every time his name is in the news. So you can imagine where, with so many places to spend their money, there's only so far that money is going to go. Additionally, the GOP base is the target of a lot of merchandising. They're being told that they need to buy all kinds of things in order to show their support for the cause. Things like anti-woke beer, Mike Huckabee's Children's Guide to Fighting Socialism, whatever the My Pillow guy is selling these days, whatever Alex Jones is selling these days, and a whole host of other products that are geared specifically towards the MAGA base. And these things cost money, which in turn means that there is less money to be donated to these political organizations. Now yes, some of these corporations will then donate some of their profits to these politicians and their affiliated groups, but at the end of the day, the GOP would probably be making more money if they didn't have to deal with their corporate competitors. However, there is nobody better at merchandising to the GOP base than Donald Trump himself. You of course have the iconic MAGA hat, but you also have the Trump flags, Trump bumper stickers, Trump koozies, Trump bucks, Trump NFTs, and the list goes on and on. It reminds me a lot of the merchandising scene from Spaceballs, and I honestly wouldn't be too surprised if we eventually see Trump the Flamethrower brought to you by Elon Musk. But jokes aside, Donald Trump is very good at convincing his base to spend their money on his products, and while he does get the profits from that, it's minus the cost of doing business, so he's making less money that way than he probably would by just getting them to donate their money straight to one of his PACs, super PACs, or directly to his campaign. The last culprit we're going to look at is the GOP itself, and more specifically some of the MAGA Republicans who have managed to attain leadership roles in both the state and national parties, who have ended up costing the Republican Party a ton of money. One of my favorite examples is Rick Scott, who took over the Republican National Senate Committee for the 2022 midterms. He came in with a wealth of funds, but he managed to waste them all mostly on consultants and a digital fundraising scheme that ended up raising next to nothing for the NRSC. And by the end of the campaign, they had less than half of what the Democratic Party had to spend, and overall it was a poor showing. And we see a lot of similar patterns on the state level as well, where people have been paying for recounts, election fraud analysts, and a lot of other weird services that don't really benefit the party in any way, shape, or form. They don't increase their appeal, they don't raise the money, they don't conduct voter outreach. Honestly, it just seems like it's a lot of people trying to squeeze whatever money they can out of these MAGA officials at the lower level in order to make a quick buck while not actually providing the GOP with an angle that would allow them to be more successful in future elections. When it comes to Donald Trump, the former president really is his own worst enemy, because the biggest drain on Trump's campaign finances are his own legal expenses. The former president is currently facing 3 indictments, and a 4th is pretty likely in the near future. And in order to make sure he is defended against all of these accusations in various jurisdictions, he's going to need a small army of lawyers. And I can promise you that that's not going to be cheap. Now, I don't think that's going to really hurt him in the Republican primary, as, quite frankly, Republican primary voters know who Trump is and what he stands for. He really doesn't need to do much promotion or advertising. But where it may become more of a problem is in a general election, where Joe Biden just isn't going to have that same drain on his campaign finances, which would allow him to massively outspend Donald Trump in a lot of the key battleground states that are going to be so important to winning in 2024. So, I think we've solved the case of the missing GOP campaign funds. Some members of the donor class no longer see the GOP as a good investment, their base voters simply have no more money to give, and officials at the local, state, national level, and even former President Donald Trump are simply spending the money they do have on things that aren't going to help them win in 2024. Think about it.